We received this account from a subscriber who asked to be called Sandra. According to her, everything happened on a rainy night she could never forget. Sandra worked at a 24-hour supermarket. Her shift started at 6 p.m. and ended at 2 a.m., a time when the city streets were practically deserted. That night, a severe storm hit the region. The rain fell so heavily that several streets flooded, blocking the route she usually took to get home. With few options, Sandra decided to take an alternate route suggested by a navigation app. It was a path she had never used before. The road was narrow, surrounded by ancient trees that swayed violently in the wind. Visibility was terrible due to the thick fog and constant rain. After a few minutes of driving, she noticed something that made her uncomfortable. The route passed right by the old municipal cemetery, a place surrounded by strange stories that had circulated around town for decades. Even though she felt an inexplicable chill run down her spine, Sandra kept driving, with no idea that this decision would change her life forever. Sandra walked slowly toward the shelter of the cemetery, while the rain lashed against the roof with terrifying force. The wind blew through the openings of the building, bringing a coldness that seemed to pierce right through her skin. Upon entering the wake visitation area, she noticed that one of the small rooms was occupied. A few people dressed in black stood in silence around a white coffin, illuminated only by the dim light of a few candles. Driven by curiosity and the sadness of the scene, Sandra took a discreet look inside. She overheard someone comment, in a low voice, that the child was only 4 years old and had died after sustaining severe head injuries from a brutal assault. The atmosphere was heavy. The suppressed weeping of the family members blended with the sound of the storm outside, creating a suffocating sensation. Sandra looked away, feeling a tightness in her chest. That tragedy seemed even more cruel given the child's young age. While waiting for the rain to let up, she sat on a bench near the hallway. That was when she noticed something strange. For a brief moment, she could have sworn she saw a small silhouette slowly pass by the far end of the hallway, far from the room where the wake was taking place. The small silhouette didn't just pass through the hallway. It stopped silently behind the white coffin, motionless, watching everyone around it. Sandra rubbed her eyes several times, but the figure remained there, as clear as any living person. Overcome by a curiosity she couldn't explain, she approached one of the women crying next to the coffin and asked, in a low voice, what the child's name was. The woman raised her bloodshot eyes and replied with just one word, Sandra. A shiver ran through her entire body. Unable to resist, she looked again at the photograph resting on top of the coffin. Her heart nearly stopped. There was something terrifyingly familiar about that child's face. The eyes, the shape of the nose, the small mole near the eyebrow. They were features she saw every day in the mirror. Sandra took a step back, trying to convince herself that this was impossible. It wasn't a dream, nor was it a hallucination caused by exhaustion. The cold, the rain, the smell of the flowers, and the sound of the sobs were all too real. And at that moment, she had the terrible feeling that she wasn't looking at a stranger, but at herself, as if she were facing a memory buried long ago, waiting for the right night to be discovered. With trembling hands, Sandra scattered the photo albums across the living room table. The more she searched, the stranger everything seemed. There were dozens of pictures of her from the time she was a baby until she was 4 years old. After that, nothing. No images from when she was 5, 6, 10, or 15. The next photograph showed Sandra as an adult, at 20 years old, as if an entire part of her life had simply vanished. The kitchen clock struck 3:17 a.m. At that exact instant, one of the photographs fell from the table on its own. Sandra bent down to pick it up, but froze. The image showing her 4th birthday party looked different. In the background of the photo, behind the children, there was a small figure standing near a dark doorway. She was absolutely certain that person had never been there before. Her heart raced when she noticed another, even more disturbing detail. The figure was looking directly at the camera, and it had the exact same face as the child she had seen at the wake. A loud thud echoed down the hallway of the house. Then came slow footsteps from upstairs. Sip, sip, sip. As if someone very small were walking barefoot on the wooden floor. Sandra lived alone. Trying to control her panic, she grabbed her phone to call someone. But the screen lit up on its own. There was no incoming call. Just a photograph open on the screen. It was the image of the wake she had just left. And behind the coffin, almost hidden in the darkness, stood an adult woman. The woman had Sandra's face, and she was smiling. Sandra opened her eyes slowly. The white lights of the hospital room seemed to burn them after so much time in the darkness. For a few seconds, she believed that all of it, the cemetery, the wake, the child, and the photographs, had been nothing but a nightmare. But then she heard a nurse say something that made her blood run cold. She's awake after 15 days in a coma. The memories rushed back like an avalanche. Sandra remembered leaving the supermarket on that rainy night. She remembered slipping as she crossed the street, hitting her head violently on the asphalt, and watching everything fade to black. Days later, as she was recovering consciousness, she told her doctors and family about what she had seen. No one could explain it. However, deep inside her, the feeling was clear that had been no ordinary dream. She believed she had witnessed fragments of a past life. The child in the coffin, named Sandra, seemed to be someone who had existed long before her, or perhaps a part of herself forgotten by time. The night she was discharged, she decided not to bring up the subject anymore. She wanted to leave it all behind. She wanted to believe her mind had mixed memories, fear, and delusions brought on by the coma. But when she got home, she found something on the living room table. An old photograph she had never seen before. In it, a 4-year-old girl stood in front of a grave during a storm. On the back of the photo, there was only one handwritten sentence: "You remembered this time." Sandra dropped the photo to the floor. Then, coming from the empty bedroom upstairs, she heard the voice of a child softly whispering, "See you again when you die."